Welcome to the Moonshot Podcast, the podcast where we explore business growth, inspire innovative marketing strategies, and explore the world of company culture. Now here are your hosts, serial entrepreneurs and best-selling authors, James Philip Arbuckle and Kane Carpenter.
All right, James, for chapter 4 of Moonshot, I'm going to start by reading a passage that you wrote. And this is, of course, the chapter on wrong person, wrong seed. But you wrote, "This is what we call matching and mismatching. You see this all the time in large corporations. Theoretically, you see more mismatching than matching. These companies hire the best people with the highest GPAs from the best colleges, yet they put them in a seat where they can't thrive. These companies can add a tremendous amount of, these people can add a tremendous amount of value to their company if they can get to the right position in the right department. But in most large companies, politics and red tape often hold these people back from doing their best work." So that was a really nicely written passage about the idea of putting the wrong person in the wrong seat or the right person in the right seat. So riff on that if you don't mind.
I mean, find the lie in that one.
True.
But it's like, I was in recruiting. I, started all these recruiting companies in the last 20 years, and you spend, 2,200 hours, 2,400 hours a year just dealing with talent. And you see the selections the companies make, and they're always trying to go for, especially the larger companies, they're going for the best, the brightest, the top 25 schools, the highest GPAs. It's growing up, if you got like a 3.3, you were falling out of control. In my high school, these people are looking for, someone's got like a 5.2 average and went to Yale, and they get these people in there, and then it's, well, where would they really thrive? We don't care. They're really smart. They're going to thrive anywhere. Well, they might, Kane, right? But how many times have you ran into somebody that you just know that, this person's smart, they're motivated, they're ambitious, but the work they're doing is just not for them? You see that in creative roles sometimes. Like, everyone wants to be in a creative role until they got to be creative.
Right.
The thought that maybe, I knew people that wanted to go into sales, and they get into sales, and it's like, man, 3 months in, they're miserable. Hardworking people, smart people, but this is just not the role for you. And you have this great resource, but what do you do with them? And sometimes companies will create a spot. Yeah, you don't want to lose great talent. Maybe you don't have a spot open for them in the right department right now, so you create a role. It's and it goes the other way too, where it's like you just hire the wrong person, right? It's they say they want to do the job, and maybe the personality and the behavior is just not a fit. They drop them in there, and it's when you think of the wrong person, wrong seat, and hell, if it's just the wrong person, they probably shouldn't be there anyways, right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. This is why I love doing what we do on the employer branding side. Human capital and dealing with human beings, there's a profundity to it that I think is really interesting. We write in the book the idea of work can look and feel. It's easy to confuse a lot of different work and think that looks like this and this is exactly that. It's like we write about a sprinter, and that's running, of course, and the person runs very fast. But if you stick that sprinter in a marathon, then that sprinter is not going to do very well, despite the fact that they look like they can run very well. And I think that's to your point, where you can be excited about a certain thing, or you can be, enthusiastic about doing sales, for example, and then go into the race and just absolutely hate it. So, I mean, this is so important. Yeah, go on, James.
Yeah, good.
This is so important for organizations, and I just think that it's easily misdiagnosed, say, when you have somebody who's maybe misfiring or not doing as well as they could be doing, trying to figure out what the root causes of that, and sometimes they may be just doing the wrong thing.
I would like to we'll do an episode one day and expand on this topic, but I put something on my Instagram one day, and I wrote, "Bring back the friendly bartenders." And it's I don't know what your experiences are going out to eat lately, but I feel like every bartender, not every, there's been some really good ones. There's this thing with bartenders since like the last 4 or 5 years where they're just not very nice. And, they're selling you $25 cocktails, $25 cocktails, and they just can't even smile. Or it's, is this person in the right seat? It's, I have to question that sometimes. It's like, okay, they have the skill, obviously, but in a customer-facing position, it's, maybe you weren't meant to be in a customer-facing position. Does that make sense at all? Like, if you can't, if hospitality is going to be this thing where everyone's kind of rude and off-putting, and how viable is that for your restaurant or bar in the long run?
Yeah, it's not. Of course not.
And I'm trying to put this together because a lot of this comes down to like just personality and behavior. It's like, okay, you have the skills, but it's like no one wants to come to your bar because you're an asshole to everybody. And I've had so many of those encounters lately. It's like, well, how do I put that together where it's, this is what this person wants to do and they have the skill, but it's the wrong seat because they just either lack the ability or they simply don't want to be friendly to the customer. And I can see that taking a toll on, bars and restaurants right now as customer service, continues to dwindle. But whole other episode, but that one's been ringing in my head lately because I keep running into that. And it's like, well, what's going to happen in the future? You're going to have some robot that's going to make cocktails, right? And, all because we didn't want to be nice to the patrons. So it could be the person could have the skills and they could want to do the job, but they're still missing that thing. And part of that's just being friendly to the customer. So something that I would like to explore more on in the future.
Well, you write about, really just jumping off that idea, you write about this really quite eloquently in the chapter, the idea, because we focus on wrong person, wrong seat. But to your point, there's the idea of wrong person, right seat, and kind of right person, wrong seat as well. So, like the wrong person, right seat is an interesting one where, your bartender story, that might be somebody's dream job. And, I really want to do bartending at the 3-star Michelin spot, but they just like are terrible at it. And they get the opportunity to do it because, they're enthusiastic, etc., but they're just horrible at it. And that can also breed a level of dissatisfaction and unhappiness with life. Call it work life or even just life, because they've got the job that they really wanted to get and they're just awful at it. It's a different kind of thing there too.
I think the greatest lie ever told was do what you love.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is like the biggest scam of the last 2 decades. And you run into people that get sold on that. They go do what they love, and then they don't make enough money to really support the life they want to live. So they're not happy because they're always struggling, or they can't do the things they want to do. Or more importantly, they're doing what they love, but they're not good at it. So who the hell wants to go to work every day knowing you do a crappy job? Like, okay, you might love it, but if you suck at it, you don't feel good about that. You never get that adrenaline rush, that dopamine hit, or there's nothing, right? You're probably getting yelled at more than you are getting patted on the back. So I always say, hell, go do things you're good at, and you're going to get a lot more satisfaction out of that than going in somewhere doing what you love, but you're terrible at it. I mean, ideal world, it's something you love and it's something you're great at. But how easy is that, Kane?
Yeah. How many people get to do that?
Not many, right? What's next?
Well, I can see people reading the chapter and saying, well, what about the idea of giving people a chance? Right? Like if it is the goal of a manager to try and find the right person for the right seat, well, that must mean then that lots of people who, you might miss out on giving people a chance. How would you respond to that?
I mean, I do like giving people a chance. I realize that, giving people the benefit of the doubt is usually really goddamn expensive to you. That's been my life lesson, man. And then, sometimes, it works out really well and you're glad you did it. But, But sometimes you just don't know until they get there. And I think the biggest thing is not letting someone sit there for 24 months in a role that they're not great at or not happy with or unproductive at. You got to find out in like that 3-month period, like, is this going to work? And that's the learning phase part, right? They say it takes like 2 years for someone to really get a good foothold in a job and kind of take flight. But there's signs, right? There's usually many signs that it's just not going to work. And, I think you get into certain corporations, there's a lot of people that the managers just aren't even paying attention. And then that time does go by. So I'm all for giving people the shot. But I don't think that shot gets it does have an expiration date on it, right?
Great point. Yeah.
And then you think about leaders. I think probably the biggest mistake about, wrong person, wrong seat, whatever, how you want to say that. It's, that saying's been around forever in multiple different ways. But I would say in corporate America, the biggest mistake I probably see is you'll take somebody that is really good at their job and then they get promoted to manager. And it's, being really good at the function does not qualify you to be a leader. And I've seen that it blows up so many times. It's often nice to have a manager that understands the functions of the department, right? But they'll do very little grooming. And even then, at times, there are some people that they're not meant to be leaders. They're not very personable. They're sometimes not the most organized, or it's just not meant to be sometimes. So I don't know if you've been somewhere 5 years and you're crushing it in your department, and it's like, well, that's the person that gets to become the manager. And I think that goes on the other way, Kane, where, they'll see a department will see the company hire a new manager that maybe doesn't have as much experience as the people doing the functions, right? And they go, oh, I know more than this person. Well, about the particular function, you probably do. You've been doing it for 5 years at this company, correct? But what the person they brought in is, they're a leader, they're a manager, they're inspirational. There's different qualities you're going to look for in a manager, right? And the best managers don't always have to be an SME in whatever the function is. It's cool when you have both. But I would say universally, I see so many times where they take the high performer in the department and then bump them up. And you realize this really is the wrong seat. You should have just let them be a killer in the department, right? I'm sure you've seen this before.
Yeah, of course. There's that fundamental difference between management and being an individual contributor. But I wanted to throw the question to you, James. You've kind of hired and groomed tons of leaders in your time. What are you looking for?
I want it all.
Yeah.
Let me think. Like, you were talking just like in a leadership, like a manager, we're talking directors.
Yeah,
VPs,
right. So like outside of being just great at the function, well, what is the, all things being equal, you have person A and person B and they're both great at the job. What is the thing that moves one person above the other?
So I think it's the person that cares, which is very hard to find anymore. There's so much kind of anti-company sentiment, anti-manager sentiment, like anti-everything. It's just a very negative world. And to find someone that actually cares about the company, the team, the people around them, and even most importantly, they care about the quality of the work they do. Taking pride in their work, no matter what it is, Kane, right? It's every day we all have to do things we don't want to do. But it doesn't mean we should do them in a sloppy manner or make mistakes. And so that person that actually cares, that isn't trying to do the absolute minimum and is really trying to move everything forward, like, that person's always going to get the notch above.
Yeah. Yeah, there's this idea, at least earlier in my career, this idea that once you move into a managerial role or once you start having direct reports, that your job becomes less of what you were doing originally and it just becomes managing people. And I think that's the weakest position to be in an organization, because people whose job is just to manage other people, just easily identifiable when things get a little bit tough, right? Like, you really, the best managers in my experience are the ones who can continue to do that. I think you talk about the law firm or lawyer quite often, but the idea that you've got to take on the work that you were originally doing and do this other thing. And I think that's something that not a lot of people are willing to do, or they don't appreciate about becoming a manager. And then once they step into that role, again, kind of right person, wrong seat, or wrong person, right seat here, where it becomes, this is a lot more work than I was expecting to manage others or be a leader.
So my thing, if you're just gonna deal with people, you're like a supervisor, right? It's if you're just trying to keep an eye on and wrangle the team together, that's like a supervisor to me. But I do use the example of the partner in a law firm, and it's probably 15, 20 years ago. We're talking about this, and he's like, "Look, James, it's this idea of I'm going to make partner, and I'm just going to kind of boss everybody around, and occasionally take a meeting." He's like, "That's not what partner is." He's like, "Look, I still have to bill my 2,000 hours just as I had to as an associate. I have to now manage the associates, and I'm responsible for business development. So I need to generate, new business. And so, like, becoming partner didn't mean like make more money, do less work. It was make more money for doing more. And I think that's, people think I'm going to get the manager so I can stop doing all the busy work. It's like, no, you're still going to do the busy work and you're going to be a manager. It's because you become so efficient at your job, you can become a manager now and do both. But I think that's kind of another problem that's been going on, maybe the last 3 or 4 years. It's been going on for some time, but it's been getting worse where people are just trying to do less and less. And they think, I'm going to, keep climbing the ladder and there's going to be less work and less stress. And it's like, no, it's going to be more work and more stress. And the higher up the ladder you go, the more your phone's going to ring after 5 o'clock. And it's okay to say, well, I don't want that. I want this like perfect work-life balance where, do not contact me after 4:59 on Thursday. You could do that, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get the role you want and live that kind of life. It's the expectations do rise with the title and the salary, and you see people trying to fight that, and it's not working so well. And I've just not seen it work where you thought, okay, I'm going to become a VP one day and do less work and then get more money. If so, sign me up.
Yeah. I mean, that'll be the kind of parting thought from me here, but the idea of org structures in the work that we do is to try and make your organization more effective and more productive, such that you can, chase higher and higher growth rates. And the idea that again, wrong person, wrong seat here. So if you move somebody into a seat where they struggle, then you're diminishing the organization's productivity, and that's just a bad move. So regardless of how talented that individual is, if they're in the wrong seat, it hurts the organization's effectiveness, which is not the way that you want to build a great organization. So that's why it's so important.
Well, with the way the workforce has been the last 2 years, I think it's reflecting in the layoffs right now. People made a lot of hires that they had to make, and I think there's been a lot of the wrong people, period, and a lot of the wrong seats. And I think you're starting to see that kind of shuffle now. We got to get productivity back up. How are you going to stay competitive and innovative with the wrong people in the wrong seat, for example? And to be honest, they're probably clearing up some cap space to get the right person in the right seat. It's probably going to cost more money. So I could see where, you've seen all the layoffs lately. I mean, even Spotify just dropped off, 17% or something.
Right.
It's been, going pretty strong here for 12 months consistently, especially in the tech industry. And you're going to see companies that's, clean up the headcount and probably try to make some more hires to get people in the right seat to stay competitive. Because, I mean, Kane, how can you look down the road 5 or 10 years and say we're still going to be here if we constantly have the wrong people in the wrong seat?
No, you can't.
Yeah, you can. And yeah, what else? Anything else you want to wrap this up on?
No, I think we've covered most of it. The next chapter we're going to be talking about hiring fast and firing quickly. So, hiring slowly and firing quickly. So it'll be good.
I was going to say hiring fast is not recommended. So, all right. Well, until next time.
All right.